Hello everyone and welcome back to Short Circuits. Today we're going to be taking a look at this, the Timex Sinclair 1000. Now I know I covered this in a previous video, a couple of them, and we found out that the ribbon cable between this membrane keyboard and the internal components were severed. On one completely just gone. The other one, it was so old and damaged that by attempting to fix it, I severed it. And at that point I figured we can fix it in two different ways. So for one of them, the nicer one, it's going to get a full refurb with a replacement sticker. It's kind of like a sticker. Basically, it's just two layers that they squish together. There are replacements out there. One is going to be purchased and then reinserted and replaced, and that's just going to literally turn that Sinclair back into a fully functioning machine. But this one's going to have a slightly different fate, and today we decided that fate. So what I went out and did is I went out and I bought well, I was trying to figure out which way I wanted to go with this, because of course we have all these little buttons, and if I run my finger across them I can feel indents, and that indent is where you push down, and there's no force feedback, nothing like that. So I feel these indents and I'm thinking, well, what should I do? I mean, I can peel this off, which I'm going to do, which is peel it off, and then what is underneath kind of determines what I'm going to do with it, but I think I have a plan. So I don't want a membrane keyboard like this. There's no feedback at all. There's none. You push it, and the only way you know something happened is something happens on screen. So of course you want to push it harder and harder and harder, and this plastic's getting brittle, and eventually it's going to break. So my other choice was to fabricate some buttons which would stick out of these holes, and then use stickers or similar, probably just stickers, to then put something on top of those buttons to mimic this. But not everything is on those buttons, as you can see. So you have return, if, input, poke, print. So even if I cut these out and like put stickers to replace them, this membrane's still in the way, so I have to remove the entire membrane. So what I did is I went out into the world and I picked up some of these, which are picked up like 130 of these, 250, yeah, 250 pieces. So there's like 250 of these buttons, and they come in various shapes and sizes, and mostly the various shapes are they come in very teeny tiny sizes with very teeny tiny buttons. So I think the shortest one is 6 by 6 by 4.3, and I measured it. It's not 4.3, it's 3.9, but whatever. My calipers are probably off. But you have these little guys, and as you can see, they fit pretty well in the space where these buttons go. And I thought about using a slightly bigger one for, you know, it's got a better surface area. Real big button, really mushy. Except it takes up a little bit more space than maybe I'm comfortable with. And I just need a button. It doesn't have to be a huge button, but you know, you have that option. And there's 40 buttons here, so I needed 40. And the only downside is as you can see, I get 15, 15, 15, 15, 15, 15. And as you go down the list, the buttons get taller and taller. I don't know why you'd need a button with a top hat, but they give you a button with a top hat. Maybe it's got to be set into something. I don't know, but the buttons just get taller and taller and taller and taller and taller, and that's not useful to me because, of course, I don't need a button that's big. I need a flat button. So what I've begun to do, and here's one that I've actually ruined. There's a couple that I don't know where that goes. I'm just going to toss it wherever. Here's one that I've ruined. What I've begun to do is I've begun to snip off the top hats. So if you look in there, you can kind of see how there's a hole in it. Now this one is one I've ruined because unfortunately this outer ring is just outer ring of plastic, and then this inner ring here, which is melted / molded because I tried to super glue it back into place, is actually just a plunger that sits in the middle over the top of a metal plate. And when you push down on the button, it pushes that metal plate into another metal plate and goes click. Very similar to what this is actually, but there's a little bit of bouncy, springy force feedback when you press down. Now this one doesn't press down anymore because I think I either super glued it to the plate or something else happened. But if that middle bit falls out, what ends up happening is this doesn't work anymore. Now, what I need to do is I need to take a couple of clippers, and let me see if I can do this properly this time. I'm going to use this one. So what I need to do Then you take this, like so. A little bit of clippers here. Find a spot that's above the range I'm looking for. Now it said 4.3, so I'm measuring 4.3. But find a spot just above somewhere nice and clear. And just want to press a little bit. Boom, done. And so that has clipped it off. Now it looks heavily damaged. Looks heavily damaged, but if I press it, I don't know if you can hear that, it still clicks. Like I can feel, you can kind of see it going down. It still clicks. And then once that's done, I just take a nail file like so. And then I sand it down. Here you go. Now that's not going to be right. I know that's not going to be right because I didn't sand it enough, but I'm trying to make a point here. So I take my calipers and I'm going to be measuring across the bottom here because there are 2 bars that go across the bottom of this. If I measure in the middle, it gives me a bad reading compared to what I want it to read. So if I do this as 4.9, I have to go a little further. This doesn't have to be perfectly flat because this is not going to be the top of the button. Now as I get further and further down, you can start seeing kind of a ring appear. I can get into focus. There's a little bit of a ring there. That's where the inside plastic is melted / connected to that nub. So that nub is still able to push down. If I go too far down, and that's what happened with that one, if I go too far down, that nub detaches because this ring gets wider and wider. And once that nub detaches, I can super glue it back into place, but I'd rather not have to. So I just have to be careful. So we're down to 4.7. And we don't have to go very far at all. Not very far at all. You just go down a little bit. And of course it is on a ridge or a hill of a sorts. Which means that I'm not shaving it perfectly flat. Or sanding it. I guess it's shaving it perfectly flat. I don't want to put too much pressure on it. All right, down to 4.6. This usually, I'm usually not this fairy fingered about it. I usually just go and go and go, but I'm being a little bit fairy fingered with this one, so I don't mess it up right here on camera where everybody can see it. I can get that. All right, 4.5. That's just a little bit better. So every time I do this, I go down about 0.1 mil, 100th of a millimeter. Is that it, or 1/10 of a millimeter? I never remember which way it goes. Is it tens, hundreds, thousandths? Yeah, I think so. So it's like 1/10 of a millimeter. There. 4.4, 4.3 doesn't have to be exact. If I put a little extra pressure on it, it goes to 4.3. But 4.4 is fine, and the gentlest of gentle pressure puts it to 4.3. So I would like scrape it across this one more time, and it'd be fine. As a matter of fact, let's just literally, and I put this down on there. Yeah, 4.3, a little bit of pressure, and it goes to 4.2. And so that's all it takes. And I have to do that 40 times. I have to do that 40 times because there are 40 buttons. There's 4 rows of 10. I do have the buttons over here that are 15 or 4.3 millimeters, which is what I'm measuring this as, which are probably not 4.3. They're, like I said, they're 3.9. At least that's what they measure out to. But these can't go to 3.9. If these go to 3.9, the nubbin falls out. So 4.3 is my number of choice. So I have to do that. Not 40 times, because I have 15 of the smaller ones. So that's 10 here and 5 here, which puts me at 25 more. So I have to do that 25 times. Yeah, so might as well get started. Behold, the magic of editing. Alright, not all of these are sliced. Some of them I pulled directly out of here, which are the ones that are flat but work. I did a remeasure. Turns out they're 4.2 millimeters. I don't know. They're roughly the same size. They work. And now for the life of me, I can't find the ones I didn't shave. However, I did find a little bit of fiasco here. So I was cleaning up the little plastic nubbins that I had. You guys saw those, these little guys that I cut out. And I found that guy amongst the pile. That's the little nubbin that's supposed to press the little metal plate. The problem is if it came out of one of these, that button doesn't work anymore. So now what I have to do is I have to go through each and every one of these and test it. Okay, so here's a clean one here. This one seems a little too tall. This one might be from the thing next door. Are you from next door? 4.9. You are from next door. You are the wrong size. So that's a little bit upsetting. I may have to make a new one. Or no, I can just swap it out. Okay. So you go in there. So there you go. We got a flat one there. So we have a lot of these little dudes. And I have to go through and push every single one of them to make sure that they go click. Because I'd hate to put all this together. Except for these ones. These ones, I pulled 10 of the originals that don't want to stand up. I pulled 10 of the originals. These originals don't need to be tested because, of course, since I didn't butcher them, they work perfectly fine. Okay, so I think I found the one without even having to click all the buttons. This one is hollow. So you can see right down inside of it, the little metal pin at the base. It will not go click, it is dead. So when I open this, my nubbin went away, but honestly I think I'm going to go ahead and throw this one to the side with the other one that I broke and just work with what I have here. This one looks horrendous, but it clicks, so I'm okay with that. But yeah, okay, I don't like this one. It does not click as easily, so I'm going to call that one dead too. And I'm going to replace it. There you go. Okay, all the rest of these go click. We have 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 4, 27, 28. I gotta do it this way. 32, 4, 6, 8, 9. I need one more. And we'll go with one of the clean ones again. And there it is. So, okay, so I have a bunch of good ones that are perfectly fine, 4.3-ish millimeters in height. I have a bunch of handcrafted horrendous problems, and then what I need to do is I need to put these into a breadboard, because I gotta test that I can even mimic what this thing does with the way I want to do it. So I got to put these into a breadboard, wire that breadboard, and then connect that to the motherboard in here and find out if just doing that without doing any of the hardcore setup will create a functioning keyboard for me. Okay, so I got my breadboard. I'm not certain it'll be big enough for what I want to do, like a full mock-up, but I don't need a full mock-up. All I really need is to know if these buttons will make this go. And for that to happen, I have to figure out how they work in this breadboard. And if they'll even fit in the breadboard. I mean, I'm certain I can stretch them if I need to. They're just a little off. Okay, there you go. So, there's my button. Now, I am using a diagram online, which I will throw up on screen here for you, that shows the pinout for the Spectrum's motherboard, or the Sinclair's motherboard, ZX Spectrum, ZX81, Sinclair, Timex, whatever, the motherboard for the computer. And if I take it here, wow, look at that, it was never in the case. I'm not actually joking. It was never in the case. If we take a look here and we look at the board, it's got two things here. It's got KB1 and KB2. KB2 is this big guy here. KB1 is this little guy here, I think. Is that how that works? Yeah. And so the board literally communicates with these two pieces independently, separately. And when both of them gets a signal, both of them get a signal, it presses a keyboard key. So all I have to do is, just have wires go to the right place. That's literally all I have to do. But the problem I have is understanding how each key works, because I have a wire coming in, and then you press it and it creates a circuit. I also have another keyboard key, say down here, which now also runs on that same, technically same circuit. And I'm not the greatest at reading these things. I'm still new at reading diagrams and boards and things like that. So understanding where everything goes is a little disconcerting, because I have two wires. I have one going from KB2 to, that's this third pin over, and it goes to keyboard key number 1. So just 1, I would say 1. And then from there, it goes down to Q, which would be here, just below it. And then A, and then Shift, and then from there, it loops around to KB15. Sorry, KB22 is this one. KB15 is this one on the left. So the confusion, I think, for me, then I have a third wire here. It goes out from 1 to KB1, or KB2 KB2. So it goes to the next one. So it makes 3 connections. Well, I guess that works because Q, A, and Shift all have their own connections. So instead of it just being a single connector, it's like a triple connector. So what it would be is it'd be something similar to, I can wire this up properly. So just for a quick test to find out if this works, this is how we can do it. Now, unfortunately, I won't be able to show it to you guys. All I'll be able to say is yay or nay. Okay, I decided that even if I can't show you what's going to be on the screen, if nothing else, I have this thing out of its case. I have some wires plugged into some weird places, and worst case scenario, I can release the magic blue smoke at any time. So if nothing else, at least we can catch that on camera if that's the case. So I'm going to try very hard just to touch the board where I can. I'm going to verify 9-volt DC right here. It's in the front. You can read it there if you can read it there. It's a little out of focus, but I see it. And we're going to put this in very gently. Get a really crappy signal from it. Okay. Really crappy signal. But there's a signal there. There was a signal there. This is the one where the power is kind of bad on it. I wonder if I could fix that while I'm sitting here. Come on, Cindy. Wake up. Okay, it doesn't want to wake up. Okay. Stay there so I can press the button. Alright, here it goes. I have go to just popped up. I don't know if that's 1 or not, but I did just get it to say go to. G. It thinks that's the letter G. I may have put that in the wrong spot. So that works at least. So let me pull this out now. Okay. So it thinks that's the letter G, and I think it's because I misinterpreted where this screen is actually at. I went with G would be KB1. If this is backwards, I'm on KB1, not KB5. So if I move this wire over here, and then G is on KB4. Huh. Well, I mean, I got something out of it. Let's go ahead and try this again. So I move this over. I should get a crappy signal out of it again. There you go. Very, very hard to read. Press the button. Ah, terrible. Doesn't want to play nice. I'm pretty certain it's the power that's doing it. Because when I move the power connector, that's when I get a difference. Not when I move the RF connector. Alright. New. Okay, so it works. I get that it works. Now the downside is this keyboard map they gave me is either wrong or I'm reading it incorrectly. Because I got the letter G, and if we look at our diagram, the letter G has no shared connections with the letter 1, or the number 1. I may have had the pin in the wrong spot, but that's about all I have. And if we look here, new is a shift command. It's not even a shift command, it's a function command, isn't it? Yeah. So I had the letter G, go to, and then G, and then I had new, or A. And A isn't shared with that either. So this works. So I have that functionality in place at least. So once I have that, that means I won't fry it. So these buttons will work perfectly fine. And the second part of that is going to be to build the breadboard. And then the third part of that is going to be to mount it in some way, shape, or form. Or I might try mounting where I build the breadboard. Oh no, I'll have to figure that part out. But functionality confirmed. So let's move on to the next stage. So I was able to mount all of my buttons to my breadboard, and I found out something interesting. These sit very close together, and this breadboard is built as they all are across and so on and so forth, so all these connections are connected. Downside is in order to wire this to make it interact with my Timex, I would have to put about a bajillion wires in here, and the chances of a wire being crossed somewhere is way too high for me to actually build this into any kind of functioning temporary keyboard. Now the other interesting part is if we take the Timex and we set it here like so, and then we take this and we put it on top, as you can see, although this is just as wide, the keys are now in 2 rows of 20 rather than 4 rows of 10, and that causes me a problem. Now I did get my hands on a couple of prototyping boards, a lot of prototyping boards actually, but they don't come in very large sizes, and so I end up with an issue like this, where I only end up with half a board. Now, if I take 2 of those and I put them together, I almost have a complete board. It would fit in the area, but these pins all the way across, all these buttons, take 3 pins each to go across, which means 30 pins total. Each of these is 24 pins wide. So instead of having 30 across, I would have, if my math is right, well, I could do it. I could do it. I could do like 5 on this side and 5 on this side, and I'd have it split down the middle of the board. Or I can shave the board off and then glue them together. There's about 1,000 different ways that I can do this. And when I was just saying that just now, I realized that I only need 30. This is 24. 24 together is, what, 48? So I have 48. I only need 30. And I'm doing 4 rows of 10. So this actually works. I just have to get this together. Now, how I build this is going to depend very much on what's underneath this little case, because if we take the top off and flip it over, there's no holes here. This is a solid piece of plastic, and this part right here, literally, I mean you can't see it, but it literally goes out of the case right here where you can kind of see it. But each one of these, I can feel it as a dimple. Now either that means that the black parts of this are thick and these parts are thin to feel like buttons, or that this piece of plastic on top is dented in. Now considering how cheap these things were made, I doubt the plastic is anything more than a flat piece, and that's kind of what I'm hoping for, because if I have a flat piece of plastic under there, I can do a lot more than if I have to follow these dot lines here, the actual lines. Now I have a second keyboard for this, not a replacement, I have the other Timex, and then I have all sorts of online pictures, so I'm going to try not to destroy this, but I do have to take it off. And so to take it off, we're going to just peel it off, because as I understand it, this thing is just basically glued on and is replaceable. As a matter of fact, loud. As a matter of fact, Sinclair offered replacement keyboards for some people. Not full-on keyboards, like a chiclet replacement for this. So if I'm right, I should just be able to peel up one corner, or both corners, or all corners, and have it just come off. I'm trying to do this without pulling the knife into my own hand and causing blood to spray everywhere. There you go. And there it is. So there's our membrane keyboard. Look at that. Oh, wow. That is the height of technology right there. I mean, I'm not going to complain, I suppose. This is pretty badass, honestly. It's not even a hand-drawn circuit board. It's just circuit lines. This is actually pretty awesome. I mean, it's a hell of a thing to have to use, but it's still pretty nifty. And so it feels like the dents that I was feeling, yeah, these are the dents I'm feeling. It's literally the spaces between the glue. That's what I was feeling there. So I think this is a layer of, I'm gonna say double-sided sticky tape, but it could be almost anything. This side looks like it's peeling up a little bit. Let's see if we could finish the job. Here we go. Okay. So that might be, that might actually be the back layer of this. It doesn't feel like it. Maybe it is. Alright, so there's another piece of fluff there, a little bit of cellophane. And then this is just, is that still sticky? It didn't feel sticky. Huh. The bubbles seem to be reacting to me pushing on them. So it's just some sticky goop. So it seems like the next thing I'm going to need to do. Now, I could use these dots to figure out where the keys go, but not really, because that's where the membrane lines go, and as you can see, they curve. And I already have the overlay, not this overlay, but the image to show me where all the lines go. So I can put these keys wherever I want. And I'm not really keen, I'm not super excited about keeping that exactly where that is. I might change it up a little bit. I might have to change it up a little bit. I might keep that off-centeredness of it, but I'm going to see if some goop, every time with this thing, I'm going to see if some Goo Gone will spray all over the place and get on everything, because, you know, that's what it do. I didn't have a problem with it before, I do now. I'm going to let that sit for a little bit, and then I'm going to try to buff it out, I suppose. Progress. If only just a little bit. This is going to take a very, very long time, I think. And we're halfway there. And for that, I deserve a reward. And that reward is going to be to clean off this tape. My finger got stuck to it, as you might have noticed. And I feel like I don't want that to happen again. So I'm just going to clean off this tape. At least I think that's tape. Well, it's not off, but it's not sticky anymore either. I'll take it. And clean. And boy, are my arms tired. Oh, now that that's out of the way, finally. I'm actually, I was going to say I have no idea what to do, and I'm actually very glad that this is not dimpled the way I thought it would be, because then what I can do is, this is not going to go on top. Although, it might look pretty badass if I did leave it on top. a proto board, just like that. It would look interesting, but I don't think it would look anywhere near as cool as I'd hoped. So I am going to forego, I think, in its entirety, because of the way this prototype on PCB sits. I'm going to forego in its entirety this layout, and just go with a layout that I feel is functional for a keyboard for this. It's going to be a little bit smaller, probably a little bit tighter. Well, not really. About the same, honestly. But that'll give me some idea of how to do that. Like what order to put everything in, because I do still want to go with the 4 rows of 10 instead of the 2 rows of 2 rows of 20. And then I'll have to start figuring out how to wire that in. So let's go ahead and take a look at doing that. Let's at least get the buttons on the board as a start.